Welcome to Pyrotechnics, the rock and metal music podcast. We take a look at the relevant and irrelevant side of the genres we all love, and hopefully learn a few things along the way. We also throw in some banging tracks as well. So, turn the dial to 11, and let's go for it.
Pyrotechnics is proudly sponsored by Fireworks Rock and Metal magazine. 164 pages packed full of interviews, reviews and features all about your favourite genres of music. Our latest edition is available from our website, fireworks-magazine.com, or visit your local WH Smiths or McCall's. UK subscriptions are now just £32 for 4 issues. Fireworks Rock and Metal magazine, for enthusiasts, by enthusiasts.
In today's show we have views on the news, 60 seconds sound off, what will the guys rant about today? The main topic is Daniel Ek's recent comments. Do the chaps agree or disagree with them? They'll be giving us one review each, and also taking part in the lyrics game. Then we have who or what are we going to consign to the toilet of music history? The guys will be giving us the drummers out of their hairiest hairband, and also will James equalise in the quiz? He's 1-0 down. The only way to find out is to keep on listening. Welcome to the latest edition of Pyrotechnics, the rock and metal podcast brought to you by Fireworks Rock and Metal magazine. Issue 107 is going to be out on the 13th of June, so you know what to do. You can either go to WH Smith's or McCall's and buy it, or you can go on our website, www.fireworks-magazine.com. Head on over to the shop and buy yourself a copy. At least you know you're going to get one delivered straight to your door. And don't forget, subscriptions in the UK are just £32, so there's no paying any postage. So you know what to do, peeps. Go out and get it. Right, today I'm going to welcome again my two regular co-hosts for these shenanigans for the next hour and a half. So we have our metal music expert, the one and only Mr. Dave Cockett. Welcome, Dave.
Cheers, Pete. Good evening, everyone, or whatever time of day it is that you're listening to this.
And we have our rock stroke hard rock expert, Mr. James Gaden. Welcome, James.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us again.
So for long-term listeners of this show, you know what's going to happen next. I'm going to set our two experts a quiz question, which I'm going to let them have the duration of the show to think about, and then they're going to come back to me with the correct answer, which James desperately needs, to be fair, because he's losing 1-0 to Dave in this series so far. So here we go, chaps. So pin back your ears and listen up. Which hard rock stroke heavy metal group, and the classification is the important thing in here, has the highest number of Spotify streams? And these results have been done by chartmasters.org. So if it's wrong, you can blame them and not me. So your 4 choices, gentlemen, are Metallica, AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, and Bon Jovi. So just again, that's Metallica, AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, or Bon Jovi. So like I said, I'll let these two gentlemen think about this question until the end of the show, and then I'll get them to give us their answer. Right, now we're going to move on to views on the news. This is basically a selection of headlines that I've taken from our website that's caught my eye, and I'm going to see if the gentlemen also agree with me or if they're not bothered at all by what's being said. We have plenty of news that does come out on the website. So again, please head on over to it and look. There's a chance to pre-order albums. There's a chance to look at videos that the artists have released. So, you know, we've got loads of stuff on there. So please go and have a look. But this selection is as follows. Miles Kennedy is to release his 3rd solo album, The Art of Letting Go. Here's one that James will be happy about. Mr. Big have announced a new studio album, 10. That's set for release on July the 12th. Issa has got a new album called Another World coming out on June the 7th. If you like a bit of female-fronted rock, she's the one to go to, apparently. Kenny Wayne Shepherd has unveiled his electrifying Dirt on My Diamonds Volume 2. And Mr. Pink Floyd, David Gilmour, is doing his first UK live shows in 8 years. So if you want to find out more details about them, you know where to go. Back over to the website, hit on the news section, and hunt it down. If you want to use a search feature to make life a bit easier for you, you can do that. But gentlemen, what has grabbed your attention with that lot?
Mr. Big, first and foremost, because they're my boys. And I have been privileged enough to already have a copy, well, a stream of the album, because I'm going to be covering that in the next issue. And It took me a couple of spins, but I'm actually really happy with it because as much as I love the band, their last album, Defying Gravity, was weak because it was rushed. They were given a ludicrous 6-day window to write, record, mix, and release the album.
Yeah, yeah.
And as talented as those guys are, that's a tall order, especially as they only had 4 finished songs going in. So they made the album, but I know that Eric Martin wasn't very happy with the finished product. And then obviously Pat Torpey passed away, and that was that. And they're doing the big finish tour. They're in the process of wrapping things up. And I'm really glad they've decided to do one more album, because to leave it on Defying Gravity was not a fitting way to close the chapters. So they've done a good job. It's not classic Mr. Big. It's bluesier than a lot of their most well-known stuff. But that's sort of respectful of Rage, because Eric can't sing as high as he used to do anymore. And Paul's obviously matured as a guitarist. He's gone on to do all different kinds of things now. He's well past being the shredder of the Racer X days. He's a very he's sort of transcended into a different musical realm now. I think he's just been there, done that. But yeah, it's a good record. There's all the songs on it are good. The mix is much better than the last one. So yeah, I'm genuinely happy with it. And if I assume that will be the last one, and if they close out with that, I'll be very happy as a fan.
Dave, anything that you got to say?
Well, yeah. Firstly, to pick up on what James said about Mr. Big, I saw their Nottingham show recently, and to be honest, Paul Gilbert carried it for me. He was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Eric was having vocal problems. It was quite obvious. The mix to start with wasn't great, but as soon as it settled down, it was painfully obvious that he was having vocal problems. And Eric carried a lot of it. And Paul Gilbert carried a lot of it. The guy, as you say, is incredible. He could play anything. In some regards, he's a modern day Gary Moore. He's a musical chameleon. He's absolutely superb. Yeah, I'd agree with James on the album. It isn't classic 80s first 2 album Mr. Big. It is much bluesier. Eric's singing in a lower register. But it's one of they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. It's one of those things. If they produced Lean Into It Part 2, they get slagged for it. Because they've not produced Lean Into It Part 2, they'll get slagged for it by certain quarters. But so what the hell? They might as well do what they like. It is a bit of a grower. Took a couple of spins, you're quite right. But on the other things that you mentioned there, Pete, if it's anything like the first one, the new Kenny Wayne Shepherd album will be really, really good. I quite enjoyed the first part of it, so I'm looking forward to the second. And Mr. Gilmore, well, to quote Fish, he's going to be one of those Hoover bands that's coming through and going to suck up all the money. But you know, the guy's a legend. So you can't fault it. I won't pay 200 quid a chuck to see him, but I'm sure that there will be plenty that will. So yeah, you just have to, suppose, look at it from a nostalgia perspective. How much longer these people are going to continue? And they're not going to be doing it in 10 years' time. And there are a lot of bands that you could say that about.
Very
so in some regards, get it while you can.
Do you think there'll be a sellout these concerts?
What, Dave Gilmore?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that. I can't see him having, whatever the price is, I don't think he'll have any problem shifting those tickets.
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
We could even see some more dates then.
Possibly.
One question I wanted to ask, because obviously Mr. Big is on Frontiers, isn't it? It's a Frontiers release.
Yeah.
Do we think that's the right label for them?
Well, they've been there for 3 or 4 albums, pretty much since they came back. So maybe not. I mean, the biggest market was always Japan, so they're on a different label there anyway.
Yeah.
But for Europe, I think with Frontiers, they basically just let Mr. Big get on with it and just put out the record they're given. They don't really interfere too much with them. It's not like one of the Frontiers in-house groups that Frontiers will suggest who's writing the songs and this, that, and the other. Basically, the band go and make the album, Frontiers put it out. So in that respect, I don't see any issue.
Fair enough.
Right. Yeah, I'd agree. I think what we're looking at here is the difference between looking at the old model of when a band was signed to a label and the band did everything. The label did everything for you, They gave you the money to record it. They booked the studio. They arranged the producer. They got it pressed. They got it out there. They did the PR and everything else on it. That's gone. It costs far too much money, which is why lots of little bands are struggling, because there's no budget to do that from labels. But what Frontiers have got is great distribution. And so if you can get into their distribution chain, you can get it out there in lots of territories where you would struggle otherwise. And with a band at the level of sort of Mr. Big, they've got enough within their own organisation to take care of the other things like the touring and the PR. So yeah, I don't see. Assuming that they're not going to get on one of the majors, shall we say, that are left these days because they're not going to sell enough units, I don't see much of a better fit for what they're doing than Frontiers, to be honest with you.
No, I've got to admit, I quite agree. I mean, I think we can safely say good luck to them. You know, that I say it's an album to close on, end of an era in some respects, and as James has already touched on, it's probably a better album to end on than the last effort.
Yeah.
So yeah. Now, I've had a listen to Issa's new one, and I can't say that I'm that impressed, unfortunately to say. Now, I used to like some of her earlier stuff, and I don't know what sort of happened with her. I don't know if it's just a case of maybe the writing of the Martin Brothers isn't strong enough, or maybe it's just a production of it. I mean, I don't know if you chaps have heard it, but I've got to admit, I was quite disappointed about this one, because, to be fair, there's not that many female artists around that sort of kind of do get the attention in some respects that she gets. So I was hoping big things for this one, but again, not too impressed.
I think the problem, Pete, is that she's a mum with a couple of little kids. So this is basically a supplementary job. Their main job, she's got 2 kids. And yeah, I think what you can do is you could probably compare and contrast her with Bruce's favourite, who I will quite quickly point out I've got no problem with whatsoever, and that's Shez Kane. Shez Kane gets out there, she plays regularly, and I think that you can tell that in the performance, when she sings, absolutely. And I think she's doing it right. She's releasing stuff. She's got a good writer with Danny Rexon, and they're producing some good stuff. If you're looking for something in that sort of 80s Vixen vein, now what Issa's doing isn't too dissimilar. But I think you're right. This is what, 6, 7 albums. There's not really any sort of hard slog out there on the road behind it, and I think it is just it just smacks to me. It's just somebody going in singing session, and it's I won't say it lacks the passion, because she's got a great voice.
Yes.
And you could be right whether Tom and James whether the songwriting's not what it could have been, but I think it's just got to the stage. She needs to do something different. She needs to shake it up. Yes. She needs to get out there and play and get on the road for 6 months, which, as I say, is exactly what Shez Kane's doing. So I think if you're a young girl looking for a role model in that, Shez Kane's your role model. She's what you should be aiming at. And both girls have got great voices.
Yes. Yeah. Can't disagree there. James, what about you, mate?
To be honest, I'm the wrong person to ask. I remember hearing Issa's first album, and it didn't really do a lot for me. And I know there's a lot of people who like the Martin Brothers songs, but again, a lot of the stuff they've done just hasn't clicked for me for whatever reason. There's been a few things. I know they contributed some stuff to the second Sunstorm album that was all right, but some of the other things I've worked on, I've just been ambivalent towards. So I've not really kept up with Issa. I've not heard the new album. And I'm not really in a particularly melodic rock mood at the moment. A lot of the stuff that's come out, such as like Remedy and Nesta and things like that, and Nitrate, that the melodic rock people have go, oh, it's good. I've listened to, I'm like, yeah, all right. So I'm not really in that sort of vibe at the moment. So I'm more, maybe it's just my mood at the moment, but as it is, I'm not playing much melodic rock. I'm certainly not playing Issa. So.
Fair enough. And don't worry, James, I'll hold Dave back after you mentioned Nesta and Remedy there. Down, Dave, down. Well, like I said, listeners, head on over to our news section. We've got plenty more news. I mean, do you agree with what the guys have said? Do you agree with their synopsis on various things? If you do, drop us a line. If you don't, drop us a line anyway and let us know. Right, let's move on. We're going to have a song now. And this is the great Deep Purple with the absolutely wonderful Portable Door.
When it came to me one day in Jerksville, man, I was right on the edge. And that jacket's too small for a man of your size, and those socks are too big for your head. My eyes glaze, whatever you say. I'm listening, do tell me more. It goes under the bridge, right over my head, and out to my portable door. Trapped in a dire situation between reason and someone in law. The winner takes all and runs off with the ball, and nothing could pleasure me more. Times when I've spoken my piece, for a minute or two held the floor, but I can't get a word in, so here I am hurtling right up through my portable door. So bad, for once in my life I am bored. The public house beckons, I follow the call, slip in through my portable door. The unlikely event came upon me. I wasn't prepared for the shock. Once round my neck, and twice round the deck, and the rest disappeared up the block. So here we are, and everything's changed faster than ever before. You gotta be joking, man. What are you smoking? Blowing out through my portable door.
That was Deep Purple's Portable Door off their new album, and it's an absolutely belting album, so would recommend that you go and get it or listen to it.
Badass.
All right, so now we're going to go to one of our new segments, which is 60-second sound off, where I basically give my two co-hosts a minute to have a rant, and it normally is a rant, to be fair, about something that's got right under their skin. They've been very kind to let me see the topics this time, and I must admit, I agree with both of them. So James this time has very eloquently picked a subject called Ode is Gold. So I'm going to put 60 seconds on the clock, James, and your time to have your 60-second rant starts now.
Yeah, so what I mean by old is gold is these bands that have been around for a long time, and I'm talking about people like Kiss, people like Status Quo, Deep Purple, things like that. bands that you go and see, legendary bands, and then as soon as they say, right, this is a new song, bunch of people piss off to the bar. I'm like, what? Like they haven't done anything worthwhile since the 70s, which is absolutely insane. Particularly with bands like Deep Purple. I've just listened to their new album. It's phenomenal. If they said we're going to play 5 or 6 of our new songs, I'd be absolutely delighted. I wouldn't be sat there going, well, it's not Smoke on the Water, is it? I'm like, why are you bothering to go see these bands if you lost interest in them at the back end of the 70s and then moaning when they're playing new stuff? I would much rather a band still be making new music than doing like a Foreigner and living off their past for the last 15, 20 years.
Super. Yeah, totally agree. And within the minute again. Brilliant.
Absolutely.
Oh, the man's too good. But
Not
yeah,
promising I'll be in a minute.
I think I was 4 seconds short, so you could give them to Dave if you want.
no, he gets a minute. We're being fair. A minute to both of you. I mean, you're totally right, James. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I went to the Billy Idol concert last year, and same again. Within 3 songs, half the row that I was on had buggered off. And I think he's played one of his recent ones, and I thought, well, it can't be my cologne, honestly. And I just turned and left. Honestly, the row had half emptied, and it's like, where have you gone? If you don't want to listen to half of these, why have you paid 60 quid for a ticket to piss off after 3 songs?
The worst one I've ever seen was I saw Bon Jovi when they played the stadium here in 2005. And I hadn't bought a Bon Jovi album at that point since these days, but they were literally coming to my hometown. They're going to be in the stadium. So I was like, but I'd be daft not to go see them. And they were promoting the Have a Nice Day album.
Yeah.
And I'd not really listened to it. So I made the effort to listen to it because that's what they were out there promoting. Obviously, they were going to play a lot of the hits as well, but they were promoting a brand new record. So I thought, at least I can do is familiarize myself with some of the new songs. So the band come out, the album cover's the first thing you see on the LED screen behind them, and they opened with the song Have a Nice Day. And 2/3 of the crowd were just staring at them as if to say, what's that? The second song they played, they covered Rocking All Over the World. The whole crowd came alive and were like, oh, we know this one. I was like, it's not even their song. And you could see that annoyed John Bon Jovi. And the whole show, it was like, every time there's a new song, utter disinterest and apathy. And then every time something off Slippery and Wet or New Jersey was played, everyone just came alive. And it was one of the weirdest gigs I've ever been to. And you could see them. It was raining as well. And you could see it on their faces like, just get this done and get home. Because they don't want to be here. We don't want to be here. The only bit where people actually enjoyed it was the final 6 songs where they did like Bad Medicine, Living on a Prayer, like 5 or 6 of the big hits all in a row. That was the only time when they got like a standard crowd response. The rest of it, I was just like, what have you even bothered coming for if you're not interested in what they're doing now? Makes no sense to me.
Totally agree. Totally
Yeah,
agree.
I mean, some of the bands are their own worst enemies, though. I mean, you look at Journey, you look at Styx, you look at REO Speedwagon, bands like that, Kansas. They've been touring a greatest hits set for 30 years. And okay, they've gotten very little interest in making new music. I get that to a certain extent, but you accept it has to be a cabaret show. But I'll tell you where you're coming from, and whether there's a bit of a divide, because there are some bands that can get away with it. You get to go to a Maiden gig. Maiden will play new stuff.
Yeah.
And you won't see the audience leaving in droves. The Judas Priest Saxon tour, both bands played 3 or 4 songs off of the new albums, and the audience was there all the time. Whether it's a metal rock divide, I don't know. Sometimes, I mean, I get exactly what you're saying. I've paid my 60 quid. My arse is glued to that seat for my 2 hours. I'm getting me 60 quid worth.
Right.
But some of them, you know, I don't get it. I'd agree with you.
No.
Right. So where James was rather eloquent with his, Dave has gone with the good old-fashioned title of "Shut the Fuck Up" for his 60-second rant, and it is a 60-second rant, Dave. 60 seconds.
Okay.
And that is starting now.
Okay. So you've been at work all week, been slaving away. You're looking forward to a gig you're going to on Friday night. You've paid your 20 quid, whatever. You go through the door, you get yourself a drink, you get in a nice position to see the band. As soon as they come on, there's a group of 3 of them in front of you. They've probably had a couple of sherries or a sniff at barmaid's apron. And all they do is yak, 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 all the way through the band set. Why do they do it? Why pay your money to go and see a band to then completely ignore them? So, as the title suggests, if you want to talk, fine. go out, go to the bar, but just shut the fuck up and let everybody else enjoy what the band are giving to you. So how's that then, Pete? Is that in me 60 seconds?
45 seconds. I am
Oh,
Look at
impressed.
that. Beat me.
I'll tell you one thing though, 45 seconds of absolute truth as well, because that is one of my biggest bugbears, especially in a small venue.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
when you've got like the worst ones when they've got the bars sort of like down the side and at the back, and all you can hear is yeah, I totally agree. Absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
Me too. I remember seeing Thin Lizzy in Sheffield when John Sykes was fronting them, and there was two guys in front of me who literally talked. So I ended up moving because it was either that or glass them, and I'd rather just watch the show, to be honest. But
I think I was at the same show. James.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
but I don't understand it either, because like Dave says, if you want to talk, just stay in the pub. Why go when there's a band on? It makes no sense.
Yeah.
But
Because you're just going to have to shout at one another to make yourself heard.
Yeah, and it'll be absolute garbage that they're talking about. It'll be nothing of any importance.
Yeah.
The worst example I've ever seen was at a Michael Bolton concert, believe it or not, when there was this deranged spinster, I'm going to say, who was speaking back to him like he was talking solely to her, even though she was like in row H.
Yeah.
So he stood there and he goes, "This next song is off my vintage album." She's going, "Oh, I love that one, Michael." And he goes, "This song was written by..." "Oh, it was, wasn't it? And I've always loved this song. I've played it many times." "Yes, you have." And I'm like, "Shut up, go away, you lunatic." But yeah, she was literally responding to every single thing he said on stage like he was talking just to her.
Yeah.
Might have been his mum, you never know, you mean bastard.
It might have been.
Chances are probably not, but hey.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just pisses me off, and it must piss a lot of people off as well, because you've paid your money to then have to navigate shitty venues, stinking of piss, crap all over the floor, crowded, and then you get stuck with these three idiots in front of you. Yeah, baseball bats ought to be included with ticket prices, to be honest, at times.
I'll go with that.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yep. Right, so again, listeners and viewers, if you agree with what the two chaps have said, and I think we're going to be hard-pressed to find someone that doesn't, to be honest with you, let us know. Drop us a line. Have you had a concert ruined by some blabbermouth in front of you? Or, you know, as you're the same, you've heard a song and you've looked around and everyone's buggered off and it's just you. You know, let us know. Right, so now we come to our main topic, and this one has already garnered a lot of interest, and I mean a lot of interest, and also responses as well. All you have to do is go on any social media platform, and you're going to find a thread a mile long about it. And as it pertains to our genres of music, the ones that we obviously like to champion, we thought we're going to have our say on it as well. And basically, recently, the co-founder and chief executive officer of music streaming service, and the one that we all love, Spotify, Daniel Ek, released a statement that's somewhat, and in all fairness, quite rightly, pissed off an awful lot of people. Now, personally, I'm surprised by Ek's phrasing here, because I've listened to a lot of podcasts on businesses and entrepreneurship in which he's appeared, and he's normally not this clumsy with his language. But as a businessman, and I think this is probably the crux point that has led to this lax phraseology, he dropped the ball in a major way this time when he said, "Today, with the cost of creating content being close to zero, people can share an incredible amount of content. This has sparked my curiosity about the concept of long shelf life versus short shelf life. While much of what we see and hear quickly becomes obsolete, there are timeless ideas or even pieces of music that can remain relevant for decades or even centuries. What are we creating now that will still be valued and discussed hundreds or thousands of years from today?" Now, needless to say, this comment was very quickly picked up upon and ripped apart by artists such as KT Tunstall, who said, "I, for one, don't make content. I make music. It's possible to make music cheaply, but you still need equipment. And making music the way I make it also employs other people and takes time. So yes, it's such a completely fucking myopic thing for him to say." And Primal Scream bassist Simone Marie Butler summed up a lot of people's thoughts and responses when she succinctly wrote, "Fuck off, you out-of-touch billionaire." So first off, what do we make of Ek's initial comments? James, kick us off.
I think basically what the word there you used that summed it up was businessman. He's not a creative person. He's very good at making money because he's a billionaire. That's obvious, but he doesn't understand the creative process. He doesn't understand the creative mindset. And I was similarly incensed by this because I was like, content close to zero. Even making this podcast isn't free. So imagine what it costs to make an album. Yes, you can do it on a laptop in your bedroom, but that doesn't mean it's free to make or it didn't cost you anything. You've got to, there's so many things, but I think most people can figure that out for themselves, that you have to buy software, you have to buy instruments, you have to learn how to play them, you have to learn how to write, all these other things. And that wound me up. But the other thing that wound me up is I didn't know a lot about him, so I was reading about him. And some of the things he said, I'm like, it's so like there, he's talking about, oh, how many people will be listening to this in 100 years' time. But it's the same guy who said, oh, it's not enough to make an album every 2 or 3 years. You need to be making stuff. He wants that conveyor belt system, which is completely alien to making something that's going to last the test of time for decades and be listened to by generations of people. You know, any classic album you care to name wasn't churned out quickly. It was a culmination of a lot of hard work, usually by lots of people. And most of those albums are what keeps Spotify afloat. Yes, you've got your Taylor Swifts and your Ed Sheerans, but the bulk of their back catalogue that people are streaming are people like AC/DC and Pink Floyd and Bon Jovi and Queen and the Bee Gees and David Bowie and all these people. None of them were, I released a single last week, best do another one. That's not how they worked, and that's why their stuff was good. They released stuff when they had something to say, and they spent time on it, and they crafted it. And that's the thing, it's a craft. You can't just knock stuff out. We've seen loads of conveyor belt releases, and they've all been crap. We've critiqued many of them on this very podcast.
Yes, indeed.
So to say things like that, and the other thing that bugged me is the reason he said he started Spotify was because of Napster. He saw what happened with Napster, and he wanted to nip piracy in the bud. He wanted to make a legal way where everyone could and I thought that's brilliant. That could have been something really special. But what he ended up doing was creating a platform that shafts the artists and pays them, you know, maybe a quarter of a penny per stream, and all the people who were already profiting continue to profit. So he's not really fixed anything. All he's done is just change the medium in which we listen.
Exactly. Dave, bringing you in?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The first sort of comment, I can just imagine as soon as the words left his mouth, he thought, "Shit, what have I said here?" I won't quite compare it to Gerald Ratner and what happened to Ratner's Jewelers, but it certainly was a hell of a faux pas. And it does just show how out of touch people like that actually are. And the guy's a billionaire. He doesn't have to tie his own shoes. He doesn't have to wipe his own ass if he doesn't want to. He doesn't have to deal with all the sort of the crap that the rest of us have to. My second thought about it was, yeah, here's another deluded idiot. I can just see him running for president in another 20 years' time. But he's right and he's wrong in some regards. We all know you put Pyromania or Hysteria on Spotify. We all know it took 3 years and $7 million or whatever to make. So, but they're the other side of the coin, and I think that this is, to me, what's really missing from there's no filters anymore. Anybody can put music out, content out. They can get on there. They can stick it on Spotify. They might get it viewed 3 times, 5 times, played 10 times, whatever, and they're not going to make $1 million. The problem that you've got is that it's obscuring the good stuff because there is just so much. And that's what used to happen in the old days before everything became available digitally, what a good A&R person at record label would do. So that those filters have gone. And we're now sort of reaping the whirlwind, really, because everything that comes out gets put on Spotify because, yeah, we want our audience. We're a new little band. We've been playing together for nearly a fortnight. We're saving up to buy a drum kit, but we've got 2 songs and we're banging on biscuit tins. We're going to stick them on Spotify. See how many listens we can get. And yeah, okay, that's a silly example, But what it's doing when there's a million of those, they're taking away from the good stuff. And yeah, your Taylor Swifts, your Ed Sheerans, your AC/DCs, well, they've already got an audience. They've done it. They've made it. And they will continue to generate enough revenue, not as much revenue as they would have got had they sold equivalent amount of CDs. But I'm realistic. We're living in 21st century, not 19th. But I think what he was driving at, you could argue that if you're looking at content and you looked at it as a whole, at one end you've got high-end stuff that costs X million to make. At bottom end you've got peanuts. If you take the average, it ain't that far off in terms of what it costs to make. I don't pretend that you can create music for nothing. As you say, you've got to learn to play, you've got to write songs. If you're touring or even if you're writing songs, you've got to feed yourself. So that there's always a cost involved there. But I think had he considered it a little bit more, he wasn't too far wide of the mark.
I mean, bringing up a couple of points that you actually made there, Dave, apart from the president thing, which he can't do because he's Swedish, but
Yeah.
I kind of get what you're going at. There is actually a thing, I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, I presume you probably do. It's also come to news that the streaming service Spotify has officially demonetized all songs on the platform with less than 1,000 streams. This policy was actually launched on April the 1st, but has been planned by the platform for some time. Obviously, that's been criticised as well for making it harder for artists to generate royalties and restricting new artists to looking to crack the music industry. So, is it becoming a bit elitist? Do we think?
Well, it's another example of how flawed the system is to me. It's
Yeah.
how you're supposed to build an audience if you start with minus 1,000.
Yes.
Because that's where you are before you start making any sort of money. And then
Yeah.
when you do make money, like I say, it's like 1/4 per stream, which is just nowhere near enough. So I remember the argument I always get from streaming people is, oh, well, albums are expensive now, aren't they? And albums are like, so I've just pre-ordered the new Black Country album and it cost me 13 quid. And I saw a photo the other day of a vinyl album that was released in 1989 and it was 8 quid. So I don't think in terms of inflation, that's too bad.
No.
I don't consider 13 quid for an album to be extortionate.
No.
But some people do. Some people think, well, I pay £9.99 a month, so therefore I should get every album ever. And that's not how it should work for me. It's a very, very flawed system. And to me, a much, much better way of doing it would, instead of paying a flat fee every month and being able to listen to anything you want, say somebody joins Spotify and they want to listen to Taylor Swift's new album, you pay a fee to listen to that album, and then you've got that album in your library till the day you die, but you have to pay a one-time fee to access it. And you do that for every time you pick an album or a song. So you're not buying it because you don't want the physical, you don't want the download, but you still have to part with some cash. That will put way more money in the pot, and it would allow way more to be shared out to the artists, to the labels, etc. But they won't do that because in the current mode, the $9.99 goes straight to the platform. The artist gets all of it. Job done.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there, though, James. They're never going to do that because what you would do then is that you would allow people to pick and choose.
Yeah.
What they invested in and how much they invested. So ultimately, that would lead to less overall investment. Whereas if you've got a blanket, it's a tenner a month. People are going to say, yeah, I'll pay me tenner a month. I can listen to whatever I want when I want. So I do get why they do it. I don't agree with it. No. And I think what you're proposing there is a great idea. But it's like anything that becomes successful. If you're a creative person, if you're a musician or an artist or a writer, and you struggle, and then you start to gain some sort of reputation, some sort of notoriety, and people start to take notice of what you're doing, you get the business people involved. And as soon as you get the business people involved, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Because they're then taking it away. It's not art, it's not creativity, it's making money.
It's
which
commodity,
is exactly what
or in
Spotify
this
are doing.
case, it's content. Yeah.
Yeah. So until your artists like your Taylor Swifts, like your Kanye West, and we'll come back to him in a bit, your AC/DCs, all those sorts of people, until they say, you know what, we've had enough of this, we'll set up our own. We'll do it ourselves. Spotify can go hang itself. We'll set up an alternative that remunerates people more fairly. Great idea in principle, but as I said, the problem is there's too much content. There are too many people out there that, and it's one of these sorts of things. It's like we've got a generation of kids now that want to get on Britain's Got Talent, or they want to be TV presenters, or they want to get on Only Ways Essex, or whatever. We're not building a generation of people that's got talent. They're just out there and can do whatever. They can stand on one leg and spin a plate on the nose, or it's that there are too many of them thinking that they've got something that people want to buy en masse. And what you've and that's actually, I wouldn't say it's a once in a generation thing, although your likes of Pink Floyd or AC/DC are a once in a generation thing. But lots of these people are really not that much better than something you'd see in a club playing to 200 people, and they're never going to get to that, because let's be honest, if you've got 1,000 bands that can fill a club of 200, you're not going to get all those 200 fans going to all those 1,000 gigs and buying those 1,000 albums. It's just not going to happen. It's just it's just diluting it away from the people that have got real talent, in my opinion.
One of the things that Daniel X said that sort of got to me as well is he was quoted as saying, "I'm not an inventor. I just want to make things better." And I'm like, have you made things better there? And I really don't think he has. So I had this conversation on Facebook with our colleague Mike, and he picked an example of this pop duo, like do sort of like a dancey. I wasn't familiar with them. It wasn't a genre I was in. But he's like, oh, this duo, they released this single via Spotify and it got 40 million streams and they made 150 grand out of it, which sounds on the surface really cool until you start breaking it down. Because again, didn't cost them nothing to make. They used two different studios. They had a producer, they had a mixer. So you've got to deduct that from your 150 grand. And the two guys co-wrote it with a woman. So you've now got to split that, what's left of it, 3 ways. And all of a sudden that you like, for 40 million hits, they've not earned that much money.
Yeah.
You know, imagine if they sold 40 million copies. And then the kicker was, the argument was, oh, they were better off independent because a label then signed them because the song went viral, but the label couldn't make it into a hit. It couldn't crack the Billboard Top 100. And I'm like, well, it weren't done, because who's going to buy it when it's been streamed 40 million times already?
Yeah.
So that to me has not improved things at all for an artist. It's made things considerably worse.
Yeah, the best thing that you could do in a position like that is try and get placement in something in TV or film or adverts or whatever. Because you're right. If 40 million, if it's been streamed 40 million times, everybody's familiar with it. They know where they can get it. They probably get it on YouTube for free. Yeah. So yeah.
So just to bring in a different angle onto that, what you guys have said. First of all, I want to mention the group Babylon Zoo. Now, I know for a while they were nothing to do with heavy metal or rock and hard rock and all that lot, but I remember this chap saying that he made his album. Now, I don't know if you remember the song Spaceman. That was his massive hit off that album. It seemed to be in the charts for God knows how long. He made that on his computer in his house. So, in essence, with Mr. X saying creation of content practically zero, in that respect, he may have been closer to the mark than people think. And I know, Dave, you've also said as well, if you take the average, then it's not possibly that far away.
Yeah.
But James, were you saying about Daniel X saying about making things better? Would you agree or not that music is more accessible, and the fact that Spotify have made record profits over the last, I think, year or so, I think it was, of over 1 billion euros. However, they have laid off a massive proportion of staff and also raised their subscription prices, or in the process of raising their subscription prices again. So, you know, obviously that's a balancing act. Profits high, costs low, because he's sacking everybody. But would you agree that music is more accessible? Has he made things better for the music industry in respect of people can listen to music more freely without having to have any of the barriers?
Don't get me wrong, I do use Spotify for that very reason, to check stuff out. I don't use it as my main source of music. I get promos for certain things, and then when I'm laying out the reviews for Fireworks, other things that I didn't get promos for, I like the sound of that, I'm able to check it out and then decide if I'm going to buy it or not. So it has eliminated that I'll take a punt on this album that I've never heard in my life just because I've heard it's good. It's taken that out, which I appreciate because my income is a lot smaller than it used to be, and I've got a lot less space for albums. So I am choosing what I buy now, and Spotify does help me narrow the field, so that's good. But the fact that they're getting record profits annoys me because what is it they actually do apart from here you can listen to all this stuff that we didn't make and we don't earn, but we're charging you for it.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, I'm playing devil's advocate because I'm trying to get a debate going, and I totally agree. Like you, Spotify comes in handy for weeding out the wheat from the chaff. I think so saying.
Yeah.
And I tend to use it for when I'm doing a review and I want to listen to bands' older stuff. And if I don't have, obviously, in my collection, it's one of the few places you can go and actually listen to it and think, oh yeah, there's progression there or there's not.
Yeah.
I think bringing Dave into this, I mean, because I know Dave and Spotify, possibly not the best of bedfellows to say the least at the best of times. But Dave, I mean, again, would you say that it's running out of control now? Is Spotify too much of an entity to be contained? What can be done about it?
I think, well, to go back to what you said about £1 billion profits, that's no different to your utilities, to your banks. They're all creaming off the back of your working man. But Spotify are providing a service. They're not the only one. They're the biggest. Well, they're not the only one.
Apple Music.
But I still think it comes down to the crux that there's too much content available. There is just too much. And it's just diluting and taking away and making it harder and harder to spot the real stuff. Yes, you could go through Spotify. You could do the same on YouTube. You could sit there and you could say, right, I've gone onto YouTube. Find me bands that start with A. List them alphabetically and I'll listen to 30 seconds of each one of them. You see how far you've got by the end of the week at 8 hours a day. You'll still be on ABs. It's just the problem is that there are no filters now, and it's not just the case about music. It's the same for anything, any sort of thing out there now. Access to information, everybody anywhere in the world pretty much can access anything, and there is just too much. There's nothing there to filter people away and say, okay, this is shit, this is shit, listen to this is shit. And you've got to do it for yourself. And I know that there are lots of like e-zines out there. There are magazines like us that are trying to steer people towards what we think of the better stuff. We do 200, 250 reviews of albums, let's say, for example, an issue. And yeah, and that's a fraction of the stuff that we get sent to us. But that in itself is a fraction of the stuff that's out there, that's getting released all the time. I'm sure that there's stuff out there that we don't know about that would be worth covering. But there's also an awful lot of stuff out there that we don't get to know about that's absolute bilge. But the bigger that pile gets, the harder and harder it is to get to the stuff that's worthwhile. And that's why lots of people give up. And I get that that's why people... It's the same principle that pop music's worked on since time immemorial. And as more and more pop artists come along, it's only if there's money thrown at it or something gets a chance break that, you hear it on a program like used to be Top of the Pops back in the day when we were kids. Something like that people get, yeah, I like that song, and people will pick up on it. But I don't think you can blame Spotify. They're part of the problem, but they are not the problem in themselves.
Yeah, no.
The thing I'd argue with that though is if Spotify are paying such shit money to artists, where's the incentive, like Dave was saying, for the cream to come out? Because nobody can afford to do it full time.
Yeah.
Unless you're an already established act with a big fan base, there is no way you can be a full-time musician earning what Spotify pay you. So therefore, you're not going to end up with the bands that Daniel Ek wants, where, we'll still be listening to this in 50 years' time.
Yeah.
I'm not sure people will still be listening to Taylor Swift in 30 years' time, let alone 50. I don't think she's going to be talked about in the same breath as Queen or ABBA or the Bee Gees. She's flavour of the month at the moment. She's doing really well. Not a fan myself, but she's obviously filling stadiums, doing the job. Good for her.
Mm-hmm.
But is she going to be one of these artists that people look back on and go, "Oh yeah, she was brilliant, wasn't she?" I don't think so.
I don't think they're going to see the likes again. I don't think we're going to see another Rolling Stones. We're not going to see another Madonna. We're not going to see another Bee Gees or a Beatles or an ABBA. I mean, you talk about AC/DC. For years, they refused to put their stuff on Spotify.
Yeah.
But they succumbed in the end because ultimately they'll have made a deal that they'll get enough out of it, or the estates will get enough out of it. So it's the genie's out of the bottle. You can't put the genie back in it. But it needs to be. It needs to be more regulated. It needs to be. I won't say nationalised, but they certainly need to. The risk reward is skewed completely against the artist, and it always has been. The fat cats in the suits back in the day. You've only got to look at the likes of Black Sabbath and what Dan Arden and the likes did to them, and how they got ripped off. But it's one of those things where we just need to find a better way of filtering out the wannabes. We don't want all the Elvis impersonators. We want Elvis, that sort of thing.
Yeah. See, the thing as well, when you said about like, cost zero to create content or near enough, I look at it from an artist point of view. I like making my own songs. So if I've got decided to buy a Mac, I've got GarageBand that comes with the Mac, so yes, that's free. But I bought various plugins, and I've got some instrument patches, and I bought this, and I bought a microphone, and there's the time I put into it, and then I end up with a song, and I'm an amateur, so I've got my song. There is no incentive for me to then put that out because nobody's going to be bothered with it.
Yeah.
Like Dave says, it's just going to be lost in a sea of banality.
Yeah.
Even if I'd written the next Bohemian Rhapsody, I would never get that out there unless I pay to go with a PR company or pay to get on some influential playlist. And even then, if it gets streamed 40 million times, I'll get a few grand in return and then it'll just disappear. There's none of this, like Dave says, where Queen didn't really hit their stride till the third album because they were still working out who they were. Nobody's saying AC/DC's album was the best one they made. You know, there's very few of the classic bands' best album was their first one. It usually took them 2 or 3 to find to become special. And that's just not an option anymore because Daniel Ek doesn't want that. He promotes a playlist mentality where it's all about individual songs that are very, very quickly discarded in favor of whatever's come out next.
Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. I'll give you a little example of somebody booking the trends, really. And it's a band you've already mentioned and band that Pete knows that, and that's Nesta. Now, Nesta were a band in the late 80s through mid 90s. Never really got the breaks. They were kids when they started, really. And it all sort of ran out of steam. They sort of grew up, got jobs. But then they came back. And I don't know what was behind it, but they had a marketing ploy that seemed to work. It was brilliant. And they didn't get millions and millions and millions of streams, but I think they got 1 million or so. They released 3 videos, fun videos. And somehow they got noticed. And they wouldn't have got noticed by the record companies. They would have got picked up by the little AOR MHR groups and got promoted and pushed forward that way. So there is a way to do it. And you look at a band like Nesta now, their second album's just come out. They've got a licensing deal with Napalm, who are, to be fair, are great with the bands. They've played Sweden Rock again. So the name's now out there. They've built something that they can expand on. So they've taken that first step. And is that a model that other bands and acts could actually follow? They can't all do it because, as I say, there's got to be some sort of crap filters out there. It's like the whole we'll get the crowdfunding to get people to pay up front to cover the cost of making a new CD. Marillion came up with that idea. Great idea. It worked for them because they've got a big enough fan base.
Yeah.
But now you get everybody and his dog wants crowdfunding to produce the next album. With the best will, again, with the best will in the world, you can't give a tenner to your favourite 1,000 bands. It just don't work. It's pyramid selling by another name.
Mm.
Was
it Nesta who got Samantha Fox in their video? Was that a different band?
No, Nesta got Sam Fox in their the third video.
So what they did is they went by the video route to make their name rather than the Spotify route, because the video's got a lot more chance of going viral than the song. The song just happens to be in with the video, so they've done it the other way. So that there is a lot of people who use YouTube as a marketing tool, because like my stepson John's favorite band are a bunch of YouTubers who have a band, and they're toured over here. They're all American. They played shows over here, but that's because of their YouTube following, and the music's very much a secondary thing. So you can do it that way, but it just seems it's like a sort of dystopian MTV generation. Really, it's like the video is more important than the actual song now, because it's got to get out there to get noticed.
Yes, I to a certain extent, I would agree with that. But that's really no different to, in some regards, to the promo clips that the big rock bands used to put out on MTV back in the 80s.
Yeah, but the difference then was the record label paying for it
than everybody else.
Yeah, the record label would pay for that in the 80s. Now the artist has got to pay for it, not for the best.
Yeah. But again, technology's moved on. I just think that Nesta serve as a great example to a band that this is how you could do it. Not saying that you all can, because a lot of them don't have the talent that Nesta have got. But they did it. Those 3 videos went viral. And that then sort of generated enough interest. They pressed the CD themselves, it sold out. They pressed the CD themselves again, it sold out. Eventually, Napalm came along sniffing, what's going on here? This is interesting. So they signed the first album up to a licensing deal, reissued it with a couple of bonus tracks. Then they got a licensing deal for the second album, and it seems to have worked for them. So that's one way of booking the trend. I don't doubt that the stuff's on Spotify. But there are other ways than just going to Spotify for people to do it. The problem is that once somebody finds the way, you get 1 million of them following, and then the poll closes up because it just gets clogged.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to try and tie this back to the original point, because to be fair, it's been an absolutely belting debate, and one again that we could probably go on for the entire show doing. But so what I guess from this is that, James, obviously you very much disagree with Mr. X's comments about creation and close to zero, and that you're obviously very much on the band side.
Absolutely.
Whilst Dave, obviously you've sort of gone along the lines of he might not actually be talking too much crap at all, and there is a certain level where obviously the wheat has to be separated from the chaff in order for the good stuff to survive.
Absolutely. I'll go. Yeah, I will say that I'm always on the artist side if the artists merit it. But you have to be realistic that the world economy can't support an infinitely spiraling number of people that don't actually want to work for a living.
Well, I got to admit, I seem to think from obviously a marketing point of view, I think this gentleman needs to get a very good PR agency for the simple reason I think he should have run that statement through them before he released it. Which, funny enough, the second statement that he released after the onslaught of his good name and company had obviously happened, he came out with this one, which was, "It's clear I was far too vague in the post, including with my clumsy definition of content. I understand how it came across as very reductive, and that wasn't my intent. Just to clarify, my original point was not to devalue the time, effort, or resources involved in creating meaningful works, whether it's music, literature, or other forms of creative expression. What I was most interested in exploring is how, in this environment of constant creation, we can identify and ensure that the bold, exciting, world-changing ideas and pieces of art don't get lost in the noise. My focus was on exploring the staying power of the most creative, most thought-provoking ideas. That didn't come across, and that's on me." I mean, that to me smacks of, oh dear, I better go and get a press agency to write my apology, because the wording in that one is a damn sight more flowery, shall we say, than in the first one. But it kind of, apologies for that, listeners. That was my diabetic alarm going off. the point as well is that no matter what he's said, no matter what he's done, no matter, obviously he's pissed off artists, he's pissed off people, there's no doubt in there. It's not going to make a blind bit of difference to Spotify. If they're turning over profits of $1 billion euros per year, obviously able to reduce their workforce and still create such a massive bonus for the shareholders and for the high up in the company, then I have a sneaking suspicion that he could probably come out and say whatever he wants and it's not going to bat an eyelid. As Dave and James have rightly pointed out, there are many, many facets of this that should be explored. Should new rules be introduced? Should Spotify be regulated in some way, shape, or form? Is the demonetization of streams less than 1,000 fair? Personally, I don't think it is, because, as James rightly pointed out, a band's got to start somewhere, and if they're down to minus 1,000 straight away, then it's not particularly fair for them. But as Dave rightly points out as well, we have got far too much crap out there. I'm not going to pick on Babylon Zoo, but when you've got somebody that can make music in their bedroom, they have one hit single, and I don't know if you guys heard the rest of the album. It was pretty dire, to be fair with you. I made the mistake of buying it, slapped me on the back of the wrist, and put me in the corner. Yes, thank you very much, Dave. It was terrible. The Nova song on that album actually matched the first one, so it does prove a point. That quality does need to be consistent. But would we have known about this if Spotify didn't exist? Okay, so what came first, the chicken or the egg situation? Now, this is an argument, obviously, that we can have for many a minute, and I have a sneaking suspicion it's one that will crop up in many other conversations that we have. But for now, we're going to park that one there. But listeners, viewers, again, were you incensed by Daniel Eck's comments? What did you reckon to them? Did you agree with Dave that perhaps there is some regulation needed and the shit needs shoveling out? Or do you agree with James that all artists should be given a fair shot? Let us know in your comments, please. Yeah! Right then, so we're going to go to the review section now. This is where I give Dave and James a chance to give us one of the many things that they've read, listened to, watched, or whatever they've done with them, to give you guys a flavour. So again, hopefully they can persuade you to go and buy them or to listen to them. So first up, let's have Dave. What have you listened to or read that's tickled the pickle?
In terms of reading, I'm currently reading Stephen Davis's Gold Dust Woman, which is his biography of Stevie Nicks. Well, that's not particularly new. It's interesting, but it's not new. Well, no, what I've been listening to is this, Universe 3.
Oh.
They were a band they're a Swedish band. They've just released the album. It's called Universe 3 on Pride and Joy Music. And they were a band that started out as Universe, Swedish band from the 80s, 90s. I can't quite remember now. Well, they've had 3 incarnations. They released the Universe album a long time ago. Then they came back as Universe Infinity and released an album that was a bit more in a sort of melodic rock sort of vein. And then they've just released Universe 3, which is, again, it's more like the first album, but it's a different incarnation of the band. Why they keep changing the name, I've got no idea. Why they just didn't stick to Universe, don't know. But the crux of the matter is, it's a great album. It's just punchy, late 80s, early 90s Scandi hard rock, anthemic choruses, sing-along sort of stuff. If you like that sort of stuff, Universe 3, absolutely recommend it.
And is it out now?
Yeah, it's out now. It's on Pride and Joy.
Brilliant. James, what have you got?
Well, I've already mentioned Mr. Big and I've already mentioned Deep Purple, so I'm going to dust off something that's new and old at the same time. So one of my all-time favourite 80s films is Roadhouse. Proper one with Patrick Swayze, not the shitty remake. And one of the best things about Roadhouse is the soundtrack. And a lot of it's Jeff Healey, because he's the player in the bar in the band. And he does a load of cool covers in the film. And they've just released, to tie in with the 35th anniversary of the film, which I don't believe it's 35 years old for a minute, but there we go. An update. It's called The Lost Soundtrack. And what they've done is collated all the stuff that Jeff Healey recorded. A lot of it never even made the film. So it's a full album of Jeff Healey stuff, doing covers of like that you heard in the film, such as On the Road Again's in there, and the Knock on Wood that he did with Kathleen Willotto, that's in there. But then you've got stuff that didn't make it. So his version of Confidence Man's on this. There's Killing Floors on there, Red House, Foxy Lady, and it's just a real cool selection of Jeff Healey barroom songs, basically. And it's all been like dusted off, recollated to celebrate Roadhouse, and it just puts me in a good mood because it's good music by a really talented artist that reminds me of a really cool film.
Brilliant. That's obviously out now to get as well?
That is out now. You can listen to it on Spotify if you want.
Foxy Lady, what a song that was. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, Red House, Killing Floor.
Yeah.
It's just all corkers from start to finish.
Yeah.
Some belters. Some absolutely belters. I'm going to add one in. I'm going to get involved in this for a change. Like you guys, you get sent an awful lot of stuff to listen to, and every once in a while, you actually get sent something that grabs your attention. And
is it the new Babylon Zoo album?
That is absolutely spot on, James. Well done. I don't need to go on now. Marvelous. No, it's not. Thankfully, I think he only did the one. So no, this is a group called Prehistoric Animals. They're a Swedish group. I think this is about their 5th album release. It's called Finding Love in Strange Places. They're actually down as a prog metal group, but to be fair, they do a lot of melodic, wonderful twists in this album. And I must admit, it's one of those albums where you don't grow tired listening to it, and you don't notice the length that it's going on for neither. And the last song to me is probably one of the most perfect songs I've heard in a long, long time. So I know a lot of people, when they hear the word prog in anything, they go, God, no. Yeah, Jones is putting his hand up. But honestly, this one has such a twist with the melodic input and the metal elements as well. It is really, really good. And, you know, I would just say buy it. Just buy it. At the moment, I know it's only June, but at the moment, it's riding high in my album of the year category. So, yeah, there's one for me. So, Prehistoric Animals, out now. Go and buy it. Right. The lyrics game. The chaps love this because they're so good at it. Yes, the laughter says it all. So, Dave, you're first up. What we're going to do now is we're going to give Dave 2 lyrics and 2 songs, and he's got to see if he can obviously get the song title. So we're going to give him the easy one first. And no, I'm not singing them. So, you know, tough luck. So here we go. Such a lust for life, the circus comes to town. We are the hungry ones on a lightning raid.
It's Def Leppard, it's Animal.
Yes. Released in 1987. Well done. First one there, Dave. Right, second one, a bit more harder, this one. If you think I'll sit around as the world goes by, you're thinking like a fool, because it's a case of do or die.
No, got me with that one, Pete. No idea.
And again, it's one of his favourite bands, ladies and gentlemen. You've Got Another Thing Coming by Judas Priest.
Okay.
1982.
Take your word for it.
It is so difficult when you just do it in isolation with no melody or anything.
I know.
Yeah, he could at least sing it.
Yeah.
Give it a chance.
Yeah, if I
in
did
the original key and everything, that would have been.
Yeah, you've got to start singing next time we do it, Pete. You've got to start singing.
That will certainly put you off. I'll tell you one thing, Animal from Def Leppard would not have sounded anything like it came out. Like a strangle.
I just got the club singer off Shooting Stars in my head now.
Well, next week I have the lead singer from Babylon Zoo coming in to do it. Dave, your bonus question, go on then. To the nearest million, how many sales of Hysteria have Def Leppard achieved globally?
15.
15? No. 20. No. 20 million.
20, is it? Okay.
Yeah. Right then, James. Let's see if you can knock this out of the park. So your first one is sing with me, sing for the year, sing for the laughter, and sing for the tear.
Right, it's Aerosmith, and the song is. Let me just get to the chorus, and I'll tell you.
James is now singing it in his head.
Is it Dream On?
It is.
Yeah.
Spot on. 1973.
Yeah.
And just as an interest, did you have Steven Tyler in your head singing it?
I did, yeah.
Brilliant. Right then, second one, obviously a bit more difficult, this one, James. Well, we can't salute ya, can't find a flag. If that don't suit ya, that's a drag. Dave knows this one.
Well, just read that again, please.
Well, we can't salute ya, can't find a flag. If that don't suit ya, that's a drag. It gets played every single year in July or August.
Alice Cooper, innit? School's Out.
Yes, well done.
Yeah.
Well done, mate. Right, then, bonus question, James. Alice appears in which episode of the Nightmare on Elm Street series, and who did he play?
I'm going to say the third one, and he played himself.
Nope. On both occasions, no. Dave, you got any clue?
I think it's 6, but I can't remember who he played.
Oh, well done. Yeah, episode 6. Freddy's Dead, the Final Nightmare.
That's it. Yeah.
Which turned out to be a lie, because I think there was another 3 that came after it.
Yeah.
And he played Freddy's dad.
Ah.
There you go.
Having never seen it, I wouldn't have known that.
I think he was only in it for about a minute and a half. I'm not entirely sure. I think Freddie.
But what about the one that him and Kane Roberts, they did his Batman Behind the Mask? The theme song.
Oh, that was Friday the 13th. Part
Sorry, was it?
57.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Apparently,
yeah, you're right. It was. It's all right.
Yeah, one of the songs off one of Alice's albums was actually inspired by the Nightmare on Elm Street series. I can't remember which one it was, though. I think it's off the Constrictor album, so it'd be one of them. Yeah. Bit of pointless trivia there. Yeah.
Feed My Frankenstein, don't know.
Could have been.
No, I remember. Yeah.
I know it's in the latest edition of Fireworks Rock and Metal Magazine, issue 107, out on the 13th of June. There you go. Have a look. Actually, just tying that in, a lovely article in there with Kane Roberts about the making of Alice Cooper's Constrictor. Very good article. Really recommend that you read. Right, we will be back after this quick sponsor advert.
Pyrotechnics is proudly sponsored by Fireworks Rock and Metal Magazine. 164 pages packed full of interviews, reviews, and features all about your favourite genres of music. Our latest edition is available from our website, fireworks-magazine.com, or visit your local WH Smiths or McCall's. UK subscriptions are now just £32 for 4 issues. Fireworks Rock and Metal Magazine. For enthusiasts, by enthusiasts.
Okay, and welcome back, everyone. Now we're going to go back into another song, and this is James's choice for this episode. This is the wonderful Richie Kotzen and Cheap Shots. Now, and this is obviously a bit more of a fun one. We've had this serious one with Mr. Eck earlier on. This was one actually that I believe that James's better half actually said, and it's a good one actually. So we've stuck it in the podcast. If you could erase one song, album, band, or artist from history, which is a bit harsh, but hey-oh, we're going to go with it. What would it be? Dave, go on then. Give us your choice.
Tough one, really, because it's one of those sorts of things that you subscribe to. If you could hop in Doctor Who's TARDIS and go back in time, and you could change an event in history, you could probably change the entire future. So it's a difficult one. It's one of those. I mean, I've thought about it for a while, actually. Certainly since you and I discussed it yesterday. But we laughed, and I said that. I mean, you could think of things like Agadoo. Why was that ever written? But if they hadn't written that, Spitting Image would never have done Chicken Song, and that would have been a travesty. So it's not that. And then I think, well, I'm not particularly a Beatles fan, so I choose not to listen to Beatles. But so I could go back and say, well, let's pretend Love Me Do never happened. But if that hadn't happened and they hadn't become what they did become, just think of all those people that they've influenced since. They've had a huge influence on modern culture. Yep. But in the end, I did come up with one, and he's already been mentioned once, and that's Kanye West. Now, the guy's he's deluded. I don't like rap anyway. I don't get it. I can get the cleverness of the language. It's not music to me, but this guy just comes across as a complete arrogant arsehole. And if he was airbrushed out of history, would anybody care? I certainly wouldn't. So I would have to go with somebody like Kanye West. I've never knowingly listen to any of his music for more than 10 seconds, or as long as it takes to reach for the remote and turn it over. So I can't really comment on his music, but he just everything you read about him, he just comes across as a complete arrogant arsehole. So off you pop, into room 101 or wherever.
Just with a disclaimer there as well to all the Kanye West fans that love him, that's absolutely fine as well.
I'm sure
Yeah, we're going to get a lot of them
Don't
listening to this.
Oh, don't dash my jeans, chaps. I thought we went out to an audience of millions. Right, James, go on then. Who would you erase into the toilet of history?
Well, when the question was first posed to me, it was which song.
Yeah.
And I've obviously expanded it for the podcast where you could have song, band, album, whatever you wanted. But I'll stick with the original theme, which was a song, because like Dave says, I don't want to tear apart the space-time continuum or anything like that. But there's one song that follows me around like a fucking albatross, and I can't get rid of it. And it's All the Young Dudes. I absolutely loathe All the Young Dudes. I know a lot of people think it's a really cool song. I don't. I cannot understand how David Bowie, who wrote songs like Life on Mars, came up with that nursery rhyme melody and thought, yeah, killer. Mott the Hoople then obviously did really well with it. And I never liked their version of it. I never liked the song. And then Jimmy Barnes covered it. It was one of my favourite artists. And I still didn't like it when Jimmy Barnes did it. And then Roger Taylor played it at a concert. And even Roger Taylor doing it couldn't sway me. And I was like, nope, skip, next, don't like it. And then, just to compound my misery, another artist I really like, Michael DeBar, has made a 70s covers album. And guess which song is picked on it? Yeah, All the Young Dudes. Why? And then, on top of all that, just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, I get in a taxi on my way home the other day, and the radio's on, and they played All the Young Dudes, but it was Bowie's version, which I'd never heard, which is even worse than Mott the Hoople's. So I would happily erase that from history. No problem. I don't think it would affect anybody apart from maybe Mott the Hoople, and I can live with that.
The funniest thing, viewers, if you well, you won't be able to see obviously what's happening, but Dave and I were merrily singing that behind James's back when he was saying that, which is quite fun. I can sort of get where Dave's coming, but James, mate, you're crossing a line there. The song is iconic.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean it's good.
Bruce Dickinson did a version as well on his first solo album.
Oh, there you go. That could sway you, James. Bruce Dickinson.
Probably not. It's very faithful to the Mott the Hoople version, but no, it's. No, I tend to agree with you, Pete. It's one of those iconic songs, really.
Oh.
I've never considered it to be like Marmite, but you know, obviously some people are not going to like it.
All I can say is, Dave, well done on winning today's quiz. Now, I've got to admit, I had something in mind for this, and then I changed my mind yesterday because I heard I'm pissed off with bloody bands, rock metal bands, doing covers of 80s songs. Now, I did the review for Black Diamonds, their latest one, and they did Heaven on Earth, I think it was, by
Belinda Carlisle.
Yeah. And for the love of God, will they please stop doing these fucking 80s, sort of 90s remakes? Because there's a reason why songs sometimes aren't heavy metal, and there's sometimes a reason why they're not hard rock, and they don't sound right when they're transposed into that kind of genre. And I was going to go with that. And then I heard we were watching Kung Fu Panda 4 yesterday, and Jack Black did. Yeah, he did. Well, actually, it's not a bad film, to be fair. But Jack Black did a copy of Hit Me Baby One More Time by Britney Spears. And it's actually bloody good. So that totally blew that theory out of the water. So, you know. And the video for it is actually quite funny as well. So, yeah, that's... But the one thing I do want to flush down the toilet of rock and roll history is Nanowar of Steel. God, I hate them. I had to review one of their albums for one of the thing, and oh, bless them. For the listeners that don't know Nanowar of Steel, they're a parody group from Italy, I think, who are very, very popular in Italy. Don't get me wrong, very, very popular there, and I think in Spain and countries around that ilk as well. But their humor does not translate into English. Let's put it that way. There was an album of sheer torture that I had to listen to. Now, I'm a very big fan of Weird Al Yankovic, as I think James is as well. And when parody is done right, it's brilliant. sidestep the Steel Panther issue for the moment because that is a show in its own. But Nanowar Steel, just no, just no. Get rid of him along with Kanye West. Quite agree. Right, okay. Let's bring that one to a close before we get into any more legal trouble. Right. So I tasked these gentlemen with coming up with the hairiest hairband they could come up with. And the remit for this basically was, these are the stars that are known for their flowing locks and their, brilliant hair movements. So people like Roger Taylor, who had long hair at the beginning, we're going to disallow for the simple reason that he was probably more famous known when he had his hair short. So it's things like that. So last time they had to choose the singers, and James came up with Dave's choice of Joey Tempest. So Dave very quickly had to alter his choice and came up with Kip Winger. Both absolutely superb choices, by the way. So now they have to choose their drummer. So who have they picked that can flick their hair back as they beat the Skins? Let us have Dave. Go on, Dave. Give us that one. Give us yours.
Animal Art at Muppets.
Oh, James is looking very upset. I think we've got another pinched idea here.
Dave has just extracted a terrible revenge.
Oh, okay. Good choice. Yeah, go on, I'll allow that one. Why Animal?
Because he's the drummer that every drummer should aspire to. doesn't give a toss. Complete lunatic. And every band's got to have worth the salt. Got to have a drummer that's a complete lunatic.
Yeah.
And he's the only drummer I've ever seen who beat Buddy Rich in a drum battle. If you can beat Buddy Rich, you must be bloody good.
Super. Right then, James, I'm presuming that Dave has indeed pinched your choice. So
absolutely, I was locked in with Animal. I was like, yeah, because he's head to toe fairy. He beat. That's where the Buddy Rich thing. I had it all worked out, and now I've got to start from scratch. Yes, he's Cockett.
Well, in all fairness, we did give Dave the rest of the episode when you pinched Joey Tempest for him. So we'll do the same for you, James. So I'll give it to the end of the quiz to come up with another hairiest hair drummer. And funny enough, the quiz is exactly what we're going to do next. So you ain't got that long, to be fair with you, James. So, as you well know, I set these gentlemen a quiz question at the beginning of this episode. And it was, which hard rock, heavy metal, and again, the classification is a bit the key here because there's certain bands that have been excluded because they actually do fall under the category of rock only, which is different. According to Spotify. And which one of these four bands had the highest number of Spotify streams? Now, obviously, I can tell the chaps have been trying to think about individual songs as well. We're playing a large part in this. So the four choices were Metallica, AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, and Bon Jovi. That's Metallica, AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, and Bon Jovi. Now, listeners and viewers, again, if you want to get involved out of those four, pick your answer. Drop it in a message down below. And then, obviously, I'm going to tell you the answer later, but we'll see if you got it right. So no change in your answer if you do. So, James, we'll go to you first. So out of those four, who are you saying has the highest number of Spotify streams?
Right, they're all big acts.
Yes.
But out of those four, I'm picking Bon Jovi. I think that they've got the most commercial appeal because they can easily fill a 2-disc set of greatest hits. You'd struggle to do that with Guns N' Roses. You'd struggle to do that with Metallica because Metallica are not what you call a singles band. And I know Bon Jovi are in the upper echelons of the most streamed artists in Spotify, so that's why I think, if any band that's got things like Living on a Prayer in their arsenal are going to stand a good chance. So I'm saying Bon Jovi.
Okay. Dave, your guess?
Okay, I'm going to flip that completely on its head. I think that the clue was in what you said, and I don't think Bon Jovi are called hard rock. I think they rock.
No, they're actually they're under the hard rock thing.
I'm going to go for what I think will be an ironic answer, and for the very reason that James said that they would, and that's Metallica, because the Metallica got not that many recognised singles out there in the mainstream commercial pop audience that you see on BBC or whatever. But I think Metallica, given all the fact that they had naps back in the day. I think Metallica's probably the most streamed across the whole piece, rather than in just individual songs. I think you add the lot together, your Metallica fans. You'll obviously get stuff like Master of Puppets, and you would have got when Stranger Things came on, and that came in that episode, that would have spiked. But I think consistently Metallica.
Right.
Could be wrong, but hey.
Just to answer the point that you made, actually, all 4 acts that I mentioned were down as hard rock stroke heavy metal.
Okay.
The reason why I said it's class, the key is classified, because if anyone's now screaming at the computer or whatever they're listening to this on and going, what about Queen or Red Hot Chili Peppers or Fall Out Boy or Elton John? They're actually classified by Spotify as rock. So they don't fall into the hard rock stroke heavy metal category. So you can blame Daniel Ek again for this, not me. So, to answer your question, James, you said Bon Jovi. Dave, you said Metallica. Bon Jovi, 7,392,890,378 streams. Metallica, Dave, that's what you said. 12,829,224,371. Guns N' Roses, 9,464,723,174. AC/DC, 11,838,590,893. So, Dave, congratulations. 2-0 up now.
Well played, Dave.
So, Dave,
I think if AC/DC had got on the Spotify bandwagon from day one and not said no, they'd have been top.
that is exactly the point I was going to make. Yeah.
Yeah.
But apart from James, you're going to have to rewrite your intro now to the next Fireworks magazine and say how ugly Dave looks now. He's crying with laughter.
I demand a recount. So you go on there, Pete, and you count all them streams by hand. And then when you've done that, then I'll accept those numbers.
Fair enough. Imagine the numbers of fingers I'm holding up at you now, James, just mentally. Right. Funnily enough, though, even though Metallica have 12 billion streams, they are not the highest streamed rock stroke heavy metal band. So for a bonus question, can you tell me the hard rock stroke heavy metal band that is the highest streamed band?
Maiden?
Nope.
Zeppelin.
Nope.
Sabbath?
No.
If it's not Zeppelin, it's not. Oh, crikey. It's got to be something a bit more modern then, I think.
I would think so.
It is. You're quite right.
Not Nickelback.
No.
For sure.
Nickelback is under rock, funnily enough, not hard rock.
Yeah.
Which shows you how bollocks all these classifications really are, to be honest with
you. Yeah.
Are we talking like a much more modern band, like Avenged Sevenfold or something like that? Or not as recent?
No, let's put it this way. They're not releasing much stuff, well, any stuff to be fair with you anymore, apart from reissues, so to speak. Oh, the looks of... I'll put you out your misery. It's Linkin Park.
Really?
19,076,187,804. So, just as an interesting aside here, going on the Spotify theme, Spotify pay 0.0031 pence. So that's 0.0031 pence per stream. So Nickelback, God, you got me doing it now. Linkin Park have made £591,361.82. There you go.
For all those streams.
19 billion streams.
Yeah, which is ludicrous.
Isn't it worth it, eh?
Yeah.
Right then. So the bonus question: who is the highest all-time leading streamer of all genres on Spotify?
Kanye West.
Just to piss you off. No, it's not. But he's actually second. Funnily enough, he's actually second. So you're not too far off. But no, it's not. It's not Mr. West.
Is it someone like Bad Bunny or something like that?
I think they're third or around that mark.
Third.
I haven't got a clue.
It's Dave's girlfriend.
Taylor Swift.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Well done. Yep, Taylor Swift. Now get this. So Linkin Park was 19 billion, and they're the leading heavy metal rock thing. Taylor Swift, 83 billion, 48,892,238. Which, if you do a quick bit of maths, it means she's made 2 million thereabouts on Spotify.
And she deserves to have far more than that, because obviously she's struck a chord with a whole generation of people, really. I mean, a lot of those people listening to that will be young girls and probably their mums. There's not that many men I know are into Taylor Swift. There's a few, but it's a predominantly female audience.
Yeah.
And if she's got that many people listening to her, she should be making a lot more money than that.
It is. I mean, again, it does bring obviously the conversations we've had about Spotify into a focus an awful lot sharper. With 83 billion, you're making 2 million. 19 billion, you're making 500,000 thereabouts. So yeah, it's not right, is it? It's not.
And
right
this is after she's had to re-record a bunch of her back catalogue, so she earns the masters. So imagine how little she was making before that.
Yeah, no. Oh, blimey. Well, there's a conversation for another one, but we've reached the end now of this episode. So, gentlemen, it's been an absolutely fantastic episode. I do thank you for your participation and your debating skills, which I think the Spotify one, like I said, we could keep going for ages on that. And to be fair, probably who could we put into the toilet of history for pop and for rock and heavy metal. So I
think that's what you want to rename it, that, Pete.
What's that?
The toilet of history. Who are we going to flush this episode?
Yeah, that could be a recurring feature. I'll be up for that. We've got plenty of ammo.
There you go. That could be a recurring feature. We might have just hit gold mine there. So I'm Pete Arnett. I've been your host. But before I say goodbye to my co-host as well, I just want to remind everybody that Firefest 2024 is returning, bringing back 20 superb acts. Check out the website, www.fireworks-magazine.com. Get your tickets. It's 3 days of basically melodic rock that's going to be superb in Manchester. But if you can't make those 3 days, look at the Tower of Fire festival that's being run in June. Tickets are still on sale, going quickly. So again, move quickly. There's Nitrate, Remedy, White Skies, Gabrielle Duval, Saracen, Attack. I think that's the 6 that are there. So good quality bands, some of them playing for the first time. So, you're going to witness a wee bit of rock history if you do go. So again, you know what the name of the website to go to. Go on there, get your tickets, and basically have a damn good time. So I'm going to say goodbye to my co-host now, and thank you very much for joining us, Dave.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you again next time.
And thank you very much again, James, for joining us.
Almost a pleasure as always.
He's only saying that because he's lost at the quiz. But before we do go, James, quickly, who is your hairiest hair drummer?
Right, as I can't have animal, I'm going to hastily replace him with Crazy Nights era Eric Carr, because he had massive hair when he was in Kiss at that point.
Didn't he? Yeah. That's putting him early. I think, almost as big as the drum kit he was playing.
Absolutely. So he's my substitute drummer.
Brilliant. I think that's a great choice. As is Animal, to be fair. So well done, chaps. Next time we'll get you to reveal another one. Be interesting to see if you, for the third time, pick each other's choices. It'll be quite interesting. So until next time, and there will be a next time, and hopefully it'll be a lot sooner than this one has been. I do apologise for the delay in this one, simply because we were getting the magazine out. Certain things, unfortunately, do have to take a wee bit of a back burner, and because Dave, obviously, is deputy editor, and James, as in our art editor, are so busy, it's not really fair sometimes to put the pressures of doing another podcast on them. So I do appreciate your time, chaps, and we also appreciate you guys listening as well, because without you, none of this would be possible. It'll be just 3 old farts basically sitting here talking to ourselves, which, to be fair, is probably what's happened anyway. But we do thank you for those that are listening, for listening. And until next time, take care, everybody. Keep listening to the music you do. Keep enjoying it. That's what it's there for. But above all, stay safe, and we'll see you all next time. Take care. If you're enjoying what you're listening to, please do us a favour and subscribe, like, or follow, depending on what platform you're listening to this on, this channel, because it really does help us to grow as a brand. And obviously, the better we get at this, the more followers, the more likes, and more subscribers we get, we can try and get better guests on, which obviously makes for a better programme for you guys. So again, please follow, like, subscribe. We really appreciate it. Thank you.